So welcome to this week's Optimal Health Clinic Facebook Live, and my apologies that it's running a bit later than it sometimes does. I almost deliberately don't put out a set time at 6 o'clock on Wednesdays because I know that it's often challenging to be running exactly to the point. But I appreciate those of you that are waiting for 6 o'clock. I appreciate those of you that have been waiting to get to now. So this week, I wanted to explore a little bit what it takes and the process of saying yes to ourselves. To put it slightly differently, what normally it gets phrased as, is when we're starting to recognize helper patterns or achiever patterns, we're starting to honor our own need for rest, what it feels like is we're saying no to a lot of people. We're saying no to other people because we can't go to a particular event, or we can't be there to support them the way that we normally are. We're saying no to ourselves, to not do things we want to do, or to not eat certain foods that we would normally eat. It feels like there's a lot of saying no. And if we're someone that historically in our life has been almost by definition of the kind of person that might end up with something like ME, CFS, Fibromyalgia, we've been someone that's normally been a yes. We were kind of yes to everything in our life, and that's perhaps a factor of contributing towards burning out. So when we then feel like we're starting to have to say no all the time, it's a really helpful reframe to recognize that we're not actually saying no. What we're doing is we're saying yes. What we're saying yes to is the path of recovery. And if you can recognize it as that, although it may sound like you may be thinking, Alex, that's just semantics, like the difference between no and yes is nothing. Actually, it's a different thing. It feels different. If you're focusing on the no, I can't do this, I can't do that, and there's a constant feeling of kind of giving up and stepping away from, if we then move towards the feeling of what I'm doing is I'm honoring and I'm listening to my body. I'm saying yes to rest. I'm saying yes to the foods that my body needs. I'm saying yes to interacting with people in the way that's actually going to be nurturing and supportive of me. Because, you see, one of the things that often needs to happen on the path of recovery is we build up the self-love and the self-worth in such a way that we recognize that our needs are important. And in a sense, that our needs are more important, not necessarily more important than anyone else's needs, but at least in the path of our recovery, honoring our body's needs and our kind of emotional needs is a crucial step towards the body being able to rest and to heal itself. And so if what we're doing is we're constantly saying yes to everyone else and no to ourselves, we need to look at what's driving that. And that's where stuff we put out around the helper pattern particularly can be, and there's various videos and pieces we've done on that, can be really helpful. If we start to make that shift away from being there for everyone else and constantly saying yes to others and no to ourselves, towards having the self-worth and the self-love to say no to others when we need to and say yes to ourselves, that it can be a big milestone. And if that's difficult, we need to look at what comes up which makes it difficult for us to do that. What are the blocks? What are the resistances? What are the emotions that come up in terms of doing that? And sometimes in relationships with certain people, if we've been the person that's always been reliable, always been there for others, always been supporting, like the dynamics of our relationships have been such that it's kind of 80% us giving to others and 20% us taking for ourselves, we start to say yes to ourselves and we start to value our own needs, and we start to see that we need to have more healthy relationships. We start to move that 80 for the other and 20 to ourselves towards something more balanced, like a 50-50. In the process of making that transition, it can have all kinds of impacts on how others relate to us, how we feel, and that changing of the dynamic of relationships takes practice. But the first step towards allowing that and facilitating that is loving ourselves enough, recognizing that we matter enough to be able to get what we need. and to meet our own needs. And it's sometimes in those relationships, an analogy that I've used before is it can be like a dance. And if we're we're ballroom dancing with someone, and then we decide to change the dance. We decide that we're going to do the tango or the foxtrot or whatever. That person is basically left with one of three choices. They are either going to try and hold us back in the old dance, like we're going to try and pull into a different step and rhythm, and they're going to try and pull us back to where we were. Or they're going to come and dance the new dance with us. They're going to stop the old dance and they're going to join the new dance. Or we're going to go and dance separately, because you can't have two people doing two completely different dances and dancing together. And the same is true in relationships. If what we've always been doing is saying yes to others and no to ourselves, and then we start to say yes to ourselves, which sometimes inevitably means saying no to some other people, then we're forcing the dynamic of that dance to change. And when the dynamic of that dance changes, that inevitably causes some ripples in terms of the relationship. Sometimes that needs communication. Sometimes it needs a certain amount of just compassion and patience on our side. Other times, sometimes we go gently and we kind of communicate it. And other times, the only way to really make the transition is to go in hard and just kind of to force it to a new dance and force a decision out of the person that we're dancing with. As I say, it's having enough self-worth and self-love to allow ourselves to make that change. It's then seeing what comes up in the making of the change. It's then having the tools and the techniques to deal with, and the strategies to deal with what may come up in the process of making that change. So it's a good question to reflect on. Are you someone that generally says yes to others and no to yourself? Are you someone that is transitioning now, perhaps, towards saying to no to others, but in the saying no to others, are you focused towards the negative as opposed towards the positive? I.e., the kind of the gift of self-love of saying yes to your own needs. Like, we spend so much of our lives looking for love and validation outside of us, from how we act, from how we dress, from what we try and give to others, from how we try and achieve all the stuff and all the noise, all the things that go on in life, which is about getting self-worth and self-love. And yet, the person that we most want it from ultimately is ourselves, because we're the person that we spend 24 hours a day with, day after day after day. We're with us. So the way that we treat ourselves, the way that we relate to ourselves is more important than any other relationship that we have in our life. We might think that our life would be better if our husband or wife or children or parents, whatever, related to us differently. But no relationship is more important than our relationship to ourselves, because we're the one that's there all the time. And that's where saying yes to yourself, being the advocate for yourself, standing up for your own needs, loving yourself in the way that is needed to do that, that is such a powerful gift. And that's the way that ultimately you can communicate self-love and self-worth towards yourself. So I hope that's been helpful. Definitely reflect on this. Feel free to kind of share comments and thoughts in the comments underneath the video. And I look forward to talking to you guys next week. And again, feel free to share suggestions and topics for next week's video. But thanks for watching for now. Bye-bye.